Hello, fiber friends! Welcome to Vlogmas. It is day 18, and boy oh boy do we have things to talk about today. Grab a project, probably something to hydrate. Let's get started with our blessing for today. Today's blessing is, may your projects be a reminder of our wonderful community of fiber friends. I wanted to start out just by saying how amazing I think you all are and how grateful I am that you keep showing up to watch me talk about things that are on my mind, stuff that I'm up to. And I also really appreciate when people ask genuine questions that so many of you are willing to go into the comments and reply and respond in truly genuinely educational ways and not, beating people up for not knowing something, as the internet can be a place that sort of festers that type of reply and response, but you're all better than that and I appreciate you. I'm going to start today off with the Advent unboxing. We will do Hedgehog Fibres tomorrow and we will do Twice Sheared Sheep today. So let me go grab that box. We are on day 18, and a reminder, these boxes were sent to me. The links are in the description if you're interested. All right, let's grab day 18 and see what we've got. It has a little rattle. I don't know what's in it though. I haven't peeked at all. Let's see. Oh, I think I see a pig. Okay, these are cute. Look at these little piggies. They are totally adorable. I have had a lot of questions about why I was disappointed that there was AI art used in the Twice Sheared Sheep Advent box. And there's been some mixed replies to that. Some people were like, oh, thank you, I'm so glad that you've taken this stance. And then there are people who are like, I don't understand, what's the big deal? So I thought, I did bring it up. Maybe I should clarify my personal feelings about AI so that hopefully we can all maybe understand each other a little better, and so you all know where I'm coming from when I say things like that. And so I thought we could have a little conversation about it. I did also promise that we would do some weaving today and that I would show you what's going on with my warp weighted loom, because I think I have found what is currently peak weighted loom. So I'm going to show you how the loom works first, and then I'm going to set it up so that you can watch me weave, and I will chat a little bit while I weave. And then after that, maybe we'll do a little spinning. All right, so let's scooch on over to the loom and talk about how it is going. But before I do that, I wanted to say, because a lot of people have said, could I do this on a rigid heddle loom, or I would love to try this, but I don't need more equipment in my life. Where are you going? She just got up very grumpily and walked out. She likes to hang out when I'm just spinning and I'm quiet, but if I start talking to the camera, she's like, oh no, this again. And she goes in the office to take the rest of her nap under Mark's desk. Anyway, so yes, you could do this on a chair. This is such a simple way to set up a loom. If you don't have something to tie it to in the front, then you can tie it to yourself in a backstrap method, backstrap style. Basically, you put on a belt and you tie it to the belt. If you need more or less tension on it, you can scooch forward or scooch back. And then you can take the warp and just hang it over something. Like I said, a chair or a table or whatever gives you, the back of a desk or something, whatever gives you enough height so it can dangle off the back. That's all you need. It's a really simple setup and I'm enjoying it very much. If you don't want to be tied to it and you did want to purchase equipment, I would say an ankle loom is a great way to go, and that'll get you there as well. It just might have to have a shorter warp. Ankle looms can have a great length, perfect for like belts and stuff like that. But if you're trying to do something ridiculously long like mine, which I think is 9 or more yards, then I would say this is the way to go. So here's what my setup is looking like. This is what I have woven so far. So when I'm weaving, I sit right over there on my bench and then I can work facing this way, but this is tied to the loom. There's nothing particularly special about what's going on here. It just needs something to tie onto. So whether that's some kind of something or other, a belt, whatever, it just needs to tie securely. So then the warp is going up and over this top part of the counterbalance system. It's nothing on the loom is doing anything. It's just sitting there. This is just draped over the top of the loom. And then we were looking at stuff over there. We're coming up and over and down. And this is what I have going on the back side. So some of you may recognize this little gadget here. This was one of the first Twice Sheared Sheep things that we opened from the Advent box. It's meant to go on a knitting basket or bag or whatever, so that if you're doing color work, you can put your different colors through those holes, and it unclips so you can open it and rearrange things if you need to. So what I have done instead is put every other section of warp in through these holes, and that lifts it back so that these have a little bit more room to move around. So how did I choose what warp to put on a jar, essentially? Each of these cards over here has 4 threads going through the card. So this first one has these 4 threads. And so these 4 threads are what is coming up and over, and then through this first slot, I ran out of jars, so I used a candle because it's about the same weight. And so I just closed the lid on it, and then the extra warp is wound around that bobbin. So as the cards turning naturally add sort of twisting to this section of 4 warp threads, this weight will distribute that twist, and if it's held up so that it has a little freedom to turn, it will unwind itself. And this has been so wonderfully convenient. But as you can see, I'm getting pretty close to here and I need a little more room. So I am going to unwind some of my bobbins, adjust the jars that I'm using for weight. And once they're hanging lower down, they will be able to kind of turn around on their own. And that helps let some of the twist out. To bring it down a little longer, I did a half hitch on the bobbin to make it stay. So all I really need to do is unwind it just a little bit and then do another half hitch where it's just the loop flipped upside down so that it holds itself to the bobbin. And then I can unscrew this and move it closer to the bobbin and put the lid back on. And I like it because if I did need more weight, I could put rocks or sand or washers or nuts and bolts or whatever I wanted to in the jar. Having a little trouble screwing the cap on. There we go. I did put it between the lid and the ring because the lid has sort of sharp edges, and I didn't want it to kind of cut into the warp when I screwed it down. So it's just going over the top like that. So now that one is lengthened, and now it's down there and it can kind of turn around on its own to let the twist out as it builds up. So that's what's working really, really well for me and my little makeshift warp weighted loom. Let's talk a little bit about AI. It's a huge topic. There's a lot going on. We could get technical on it for days. We could get sort of esoteric about it for days. There's a lot there. And so in the interest of keeping things focused, I'm going to speak just about generative AI. So that is the type of AI that you give it a prompt and it returns an image. You could also extend that to video, because what is video if not a series of images? So here's what AI is doing. This is how it works generally. Again, we could get very, very specific, but in the interest of keeping this conversation Vlogmas appropriate, I'm just going to keep it simple. So the program has been given a lot of data, and then it takes that data and it looks for averages. It looks for whatever the algorithms it's built on tells it makes sense. And it takes that information and puts it together, and that's your image. So in order to do that, it has to be given a whole lot of images to train it. That's what they call it. They call it training, AI training. So all of the images that exist on the internet at this point basically have been fed to AI. And that means that when it generates an image, it's using the data that it has, as people say, scraped from all of those images. There was a recent lawsuit in Germany. I'm not going to get too specific about it. It had more to do with AI music generation, but there was a sentiment that came out of it that I thought was really appropriate. If you're going to build a machine that requires components, you have to pay for the components to build your machine. And that's the problem. The people who developed AI did not pay any of the artists to use their artwork for training data. And so when people say that AI steals artwork, that's what they're talking about. It was trained on all of this art that the actual creators never were compensated for and were not consenting to have their work used that way. So when we talk about intelligence, AI, artificial intelligence, it's really a marketing term at this point. It's not actually intelligent in the way that you can say, okay, like, what is its level of understanding? Can it create new and novel ideas? Can it take information and put it in new applications? And it cannot. It can't. Everything that it is going to generate is derivative. It cannot do new things. So every picture that it's going to generate is derivative of human work. None of it is actually something new. I think that the problem here, where people are like, okay, but it is new because it's a picture we've never seen before. Right, but if you dig under the surface of that, the foundation of that picture is a whole lot of algorithms that would not give you anything in return if it did not have human artwork to base itself off of. And if you take away that human artwork, those algorithms have nothing to run off of. It's not going to produce anything. It cannot exist without human art. Human art that was not compensated for its use. And so when people talk about how it's a giant thief, that's what they mean. So why does that matter though? Like, why is that even an issue if it's based on other artwork? Because any human artist that's going to learn how to do artwork is going to have to look at artwork, right? Like, that's even a whole thing. When people learn to paint, they repaint paintings that were done by the masters so that they can learn from the masters, right? Like, we've all ingested art in some way. And the difference there is that artificial intelligence is not human intelligence. If a human creates artwork, they're putting their whole lived experience, their circumstances, their understanding of the world around them, their politics, their humor, their aesthetic, they're putting all of that into a piece of art. And because it's coming from a human that has a far greater capacity for actual creativity, and an ability to put layers of meaning and messaging into a piece of art, AI cannot do that. It is not human. It is not actually intelligent. All it can do is take data, scramble it around, and then give it back to you. And part of what makes it difficult to comprehend is just the scale at which it is, um, it has been trained on billions of pictures at this point, and the scale of that is beyond what we can really hold in our human brains. But that doesn't mean that it has anything to say, because it's just only replying to a prompt. So when I was teaching language arts, I would teach my students to analyze what they were reading. And part of that analysis was to identify, like, who is the author? What is their intent? Why did they write this piece of poetry or novel or whatever it is, essay, whatever they wrote? Why did the author write that? And then who are they writing it for? Right? And then you can get into all of the deeper stuff. You can analyze, the plot, different structures, the artistic use of language, metaphors, all of that kind of stuff. With AI art, you can't do that. You won't find anything. It's entirely hollow. Who is the author? AI art. It has no lived experience. It just has data. Who is its audience? It has an audience of one, whoever gave it the prompt. And what is its purpose for creating art? It's just to fulfill the prompt. It's just whatever the prompt says. And so if I look at a piece of artwork and I'm looking at it critically, I come up against a very, very firm wall with nothing but void and hollow emptiness on the other side if I'm looking at AI art. There is no deeper meaning there. And to me, I feel like if we are going to so cheapen art in that way, something that is so powerful, like look at political cartoons, go look at some disturbing art, go look at Goya, or, learn about the yellow in Van Gogh's sunflower paintings. Literally the color that he was using to paint yellow. I mean, there's so many layers of things in the art that's been created. And even if it's digital art, I had a roommate once upon a time who was a digital artist. She literally would zoom in and color each individual pixel to create the art that she was creating. And it was incredible. And today, people would look at her art and say, oh, that's AI. And negate the hours and hours, not only that it took her to create that piece of art, but in all of the training that she went through to learn how to do that and to develop her artistic vision. So why do we need to take that away and fill our world with AI slop? Why do we need to cheapen the artwork? It's like fast fashion, right? We don't like that because it just got cheaper and cheaper, and things fall apart, and it's just capitalism, and the people actually making the clothes don't make enough money, and all of those problems with fast fashion. You can make a pretty solid one-for-one simile when you talk about AI art. The artists that did the work originally are not getting paid. And that's not even to talk about the environmental issues. The chips that AI uses for processing are different than everything that has come before, and the types of data centers that are required to be built for AI to have the infrastructure it needs to continue developing, they're extremely water hungry because the processors run really hot and they have to have water for cooling. So when they're building AI, data centers that are these massive buildings, and they're putting them like in the middle of Arizona and other places that already struggle with drought and limited water resources, that's going to cause real harm to the environment and to the humans that need water. they're talking a lot about putting these centers around the Great Lakes. I live near Lake Michigan. The Great Lakes are a big source of fresh water for North America. I think they have like 10% of the world's surface fresh water. 10% of it is in the Great Lakes. And yeah, so the idea that they're just going to put data centers around the Great Lakes and use all that water, the Great Lakes have already been damaged so much from industry and the ecosystems. There's a lot of people working hard to recover them, and just, putting these data centers around, that's not going to help any of those efforts. And so I think, why is it necessary? It's literally taking jobs from actual artists. If we want to have art, then let's find an artist to create the art. Or maybe we can learn to do the art ourselves. And maybe it won't look as polished or whatever, but that's with any craft. Look at any spinner's first yarn. It's not going to look the same as it will if they've been spinning for 10 years, because there's a development of skill and progress, and people need the opportunity to have that progression and have that practice. And that's how you get craftspeople. That's how you get artists and authors and people who are good at creating things to match their vision of that creation. And so when you can do it with just a few clicks, there's fewer and fewer people being given the opportunity to create art. And personally, I just feel like I would rather live in a world with more artists who are fairly paid. And if it's something that I can do without the AI art, I'm going to do without the AI art. And so far, I haven't found a real solid reason or justification as to why AI art is necessary. I think we've been sold a problem that doesn't exist and given a really complicated tool that we don't really need. And so that's my personal feeling right now about specifically AI generative art. And, if you have different opinions, you're welcome to have those. That's fine. You can have your opinions. I can have my opinion, and it's okay. We can still get along on the internet. As I said earlier in this video, I just appreciate the way that you all have been in the comment section when people have genuine questions and just conversing about it. Let's keep that up. We can talk to each other like people, because we are all people, which, generative content creators is another thing. There are commercials right now that are completely generated by AI art. Actors have a pretty big problem with people being generated that are not paid actors. So there are some complicated questions about where this is going to go and the rippling impacts it's going to have in society. And like I said, I would rather have more artists than less. So let's not put them out of a job, and let's not steal their work. So that's where I stand on AI art. I hope that clarifies some things. Thank you for watching me weave. I'm going to show you a little bit of spinning next, but first I wanted to show you how I steamed the fiber that came in Hedgehog Fibres, because steaming it helps to open it up when it gets compressed from being, bundled up and packaged and shipped and all of that. It can make it a little flat. So let's head to the iron and do a little steaming. And thank you for listening to this very, very deep thoughts about AI with Evie. Someone asked a question about short forward drafting and having the yarn draft down one side of the comb top, and then you have floofs sticking out on the other side that don't get caught up in the yarn. So I wanted to give a different angle on my spinning so you could observe and I could kind of demonstrate how I address this. I turn my comb top, and you'll see me doing that with my fiber supply hand. I turn it so that I'm always coming at it from sort of different angles to make sure I'm catching all of the fibers that are sticking out the farthest. And I do a lot of folding it back under and catching on whatever is still sticking out. And that way I don't have to do as many stop and rejoin. And then I also don't have the issue of color management if I tear the braid down into different pieces that can affect the color. So I just keep folding it over, I keep turning it, I twist it, I angle it, whatever it takes to get those longer. They're not actually longer. I mean, it's all the same fiber. They're the same length, right? But the ones that are sticking up farther, I twist and turn and fold to make sure that they're getting caught up into the twist so that it feeds as evenly as possible from across the top. So that's my secret. I hope that helped. Thank you all so much for joining me today. This was quite a conversation. I look forward to reading the comments and seeing what your thoughts are. And yeah, I will see you all tomorrow. Happy spinning and happy Vlogmas!